Welcome to this video about your options following a decision from the local authority about an education, health and care needs assessment or an education, health and care plan. This video will provide you with information about which local authority decisions you can challenge and how, what your options are if you do not agree with the local authority decision, and give you an understanding about the role of mediation and if you need to consider it. There are 4 decisions that the local authority makes that come with rights of appeal. These are: the local authority refuses to undertake a needs assessment or a reassessment. The local authority do not agree to issue an EHCP following a needs assessment. Section B, Section F or Section I of a final EHCP. Section B is the description of your child's educational needs. Section F is the description of the educational provision which needs to be in place for them. And Section I is the educational placement. And finally, the local authority decides the EHCP is no longer necessary. This is called a cease to maintain decision. When these decisions are made, the local authority must send you a letter with their decision and your rights of appeal. In most cases, this letter will be emailed to you rather than posted. You must keep this letter safe, as if you decide to go to mediation or lodge an appeal, you will need it. When you have the decision letter from the local authority, you have 3 broad options. These are: do not challenge the decision and instead speak to your education provider and/or the local authority, go to mediation, or lodge an appeal with the SEND Tribunal. Let's look at each of these options in more detail. You can always choose to not challenge the decision the local authority have made. If the local authority have refused to conduct a needs assessment, you can submit a new request at any time. However, if you submit a request with the exact same evidence, you're likely to get the same result. So you should think about whether there's any additional evidence you can include. Speak to your child's educational provider, such as the nursery, school or college, to see what further support they can offer and what further evidence they might be able to gather. For example, can they request any assessments from any outside agencies, like an educational psychologist or a speech and language therapist? If the local authority have decided not to issue an EHCP following a needs assessment, you can submit a new request for an assessment after 6 months. You will need to be able to provide new and additional evidence about a change in your child or young person's needs and/or a change in the support that they require. If you don't have any new evidence, the local authority will likely not agree to undertake a new assessment. Again, you can speak to your child or young person's educational provider about what support can be provided. You can discuss the reports gathered in the needs assessment with them and see what recommendations they can put in place. If you're not happy with sections B, F or I of a final EHCP, think about what information is missing in those sections. Was something written in a report that's not been included, or maybe the plan does not give you a true picture of your child or young person's needs and the support they require. You can speak to the person who wrote the report if you have any questions about what they've written. You can speak to your education setting about what parts of the plan they can fulfil and which parts they can't. It's up to the educational placement to have conversations with the local authority if they feel they need further resources to be able to fulfil the EHCP. Mediation is a less formal way of resolving the dispute between yourself and the local authority. It involves an online meeting between yourselves as parents, a representative from the local authority, and a trained mediator. The mediator is impartial and is there to facilitate discussions to make sure everyone is treated fairly and that the statutory guidelines are being followed. Mediation meetings don't always lead to the issue being resolved, but sometimes they do. If an agreement is reached, this will be written down in what's called a mediation agreement. This is a contract between you and the local authority and it's binding. If an agreement is not reached, you will be issued with a mediation certificate and you will be able to lodge an appeal with the SEND Tribunal if you want to. You can also obtain a mediation certificate without attending a mediation appointment if you prefer. You will need a mediation certificate if you want to lodge an appeal unless you're only appealing Section I, the educational placement. You will need the local authority decision letter to arrange a mediation appointment or to request a mediation certificate, so it's important to keep it somewhere safe. We have another video about mediation on our YouTube channel which goes into more detail about how to prepare for the meeting and what to expect. Your deadline to lodge an appeal is 2 months after the date on the local authority decision letter or 1 month after the date on the mediation certificate, whichever is later. You can lodge a late appeal, but a judge has to consider if your appeal should be registered, which can add further delays. In most cases, if you want to lodge an appeal, you will first need to get a mediation certificate. The only time you don't need to consider mediation and get a mediation certificate is if you are only appealing Section I of a final EHCP. That's the educational placement. You will need to provide a mediation certificate when you make an application to appeal. The appeal form you need to complete differs depending on what you are appealing. For a refusal to assess appeal, you will need to use a SEND 35A form. For all other kinds of appeals, you will need to use a SEND 35 form. We have videos on our YouTube channel which explains how to complete the forms, and you can find the links to those in the description below.